peace. Then he said, I feel weakness in my bodies. I said, Allah protects you from weakness, Father. He said, Fatima, please bring the Yemeni cloak and cover me with it. So I bought the Yemeni cloak and covered him with it. Then I looked at him and saw that his face was shining like a full moon, its glory and splendor. After a while, my son Hassan came in and said, Peace be upon you, mother. I replied, Upon you, peace, O light of my eyes and delight of my heart. He then said, Mother, I smell a sweet fragrance, so sweet and so pure that of my grandfather, the Prophet of Allah. I replied, Yes, your grandfather is lying underneath the cloak. Hassan went near the cloak and said, Peace be upon you, my grandfather, Prophet of Allah. May I enter the cloak with you? I replied, Upon you, peace, my son, the master of my fountain, the Kothar. You are given the permission to enter. So I entered the cloak with them. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. After a while, my son Hussein came in and said, Peace be upon you. I replied, Upon you, peace, O light of my eyes and delight of my heart. He then said, Mother, I smell a sweet fragrance like that of my grandfather, the Prophet of Allah. I replied, Your grandfather and your brother are lying underneath the cloak. Hussein stepped towards the cloak and said, Peace be upon you, my grandfather, the chosen of Allah. May I enter the cloak with you? I replied, Upon you, peace, my son, my son and my interceder, my followers. You are given the permission to enter. So Hussein entered the cloak with them. After a while, Abu Hassan Ali bin Abi Talib came in and said, Peace be upon you, O daughter of the Prophet of Allah. I replied, Upon you, the peace, O father of Hassan and the commander of the faithful. He then said, Fatima, I smell a sweet fragrance like that of my brother, my cousin, the Prophet of Allah. I replied, Yes, he is underneath the cloak with your two sons. So Ali went near the cloak and said, Peace be upon you, Prophet of Allah. May I enter the cloak with you? He replied, Upon you, peace, my brother, my legatee, my successor, my standard bearer. You are given the permission to enter. So Ali entered the cloak with them. Wow. Then I stepped forward and said, Peace be upon you, my father, the Prophet of Allah. May I enter the cloak with you? He replied, Upon you, peace, my daughter, O Prophet of myself. You are given the permission to enter. So I entered the cloak with them. Getting together underneath the cloak, my father, the Prophet of Allah, he then said, he held the two ends of the cloak and raised his hand high towards the heavens and prayed, O Allah, these are the people of my household, the Elobed. They are my confidants and my supporters. Their flesh is my flesh, their blood is my blood. Whoever hurts them hurts me too. Whoever displeases them displeases me too. I'm at war with those at war with them. I'm at peace with those at peace with them. I am the enemy of their enemies, and I am the friend of their friends. They are from me, and I am from them. O Allah, bestow your benefits, your blessings, benefits, forgiveness, and your pleasure upon me and them, and remove impurity from them and keep them thoroughly pure. That Salli Allah Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. O Allah, bestow your blessings, forgiveness. Then the Lord Almighty said, O my angels, O residents of my heavens, verily I have not created the erected skies, the stretched earth, the illuminated moon, the bright sun, the rotating planets, the flowing seas, and the sailing ships, but for the love of these five lying underneath the cloak. Jibreel, the trusted angel, asked, Who are underneath the cloak? The Almighty answered, They are the household of the Prophet and the assets of prophethood. They are Fatima, her father, and her husband, and her two sons. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. Jibreel said, O Lord, may I fly to earth to be the sixth of them? Allah replied, Yes, you are given permission. Jibreel, the trusted, landed near them and said, Peace be upon you, O Prophet of Allah, the All-Highest, conveys his peace on you and his greetings and says, By my honor and glory, O my angels, O residents of my heavens, verily I have not created the erected sky, the stretched earth, the illuminated moon, the bright sun, the rotating planets, the flowing seas, and the sailing ships, but for your love and for your sake and love, God has given me the permission to enter the cloak with you. May I join you, O Prophet of Allah? The Prophets replied, Yet peace be upon you, O trusted bearer of Allah, the revelations, and you are granted the permission. So Jibreel entered the cloak with us and said to my father, Allah sends his revelations to you. Verily, Allah's desire is to remove blemish from you, O people of the house of the Elabit, and purify with a purification. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Then Ali said to my father, O Prophet of Allah, tell me, what's the significance has Allah given for getting together underneath the cloak? The Prophet replied, by him who rightfully appointed me a prophet and chose me a messenger for the salvation of the mankind. Whenever and wherever an assembly of our followers and friends mention this event, Allah will bestow on them his blessings and mercy. Angels will encircle them, asking Allah the remission of their sins until assembly disperse. So Ali, verily by the Lord of the Kaaba, we and our followers are the winners. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa. Then my father replied, by him who rightfully appointed me a prophet and chose me a messenger for the salvation of mankind, whenever and wherever an assembly of our followers and friends mention this event, they shall remain grieved, but Allah will remove his grief. They shall remain distressed, but Allah will dispel his distress. They shall remain none wish-seeker, but Allah will grant his wish. Ali happily said, verily by the Lord of the Kaaba, we and our followers are the winners and the blessed in this world and the next. Salat.
Jazakallah khair jazaa. Thank you so much, Brother Asghar, for that wonderful recitation. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. At this time, we kindly request the respected Sheikh Bilal to please take the member. If everyone can please move up as much as possible for proper Majlis etiquette. Make sure your phone's on silent or vibrate and before we start the Majlis. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Before we begin, inshallah, 1 Surah Fatiha, 3 times Surah Ikhlas for the marhumeen of today's sponsors, the marhumeen of Sister Zareen and Brother Suhail, Zaidi's families, and all of our marhumeen, 1 Surah Fatiha, 3 times Surah Ikhlas, with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي الحمد لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad صل على محمد And your loudest salawat for ta'ajil faraj sahib al-asr wa zaman Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكرنا المسائب آل Muhammad. May Allah reward us for the commemoration of the difficulties of Ali Muhammad. Khususan, may Allah accept all of our ibadat from today, the day of Arbaeen. Before we begin our discussion, there's an interesting point of how Allah has organized the phase after death. One of the things you'll notice when we talk about, for example, the Day of Judgment, the Ahlul Bayt note and say that there are 50 stations on the Day of Judgment, and each station can take up to 1,000 years to pass. The first of those stations is about prayers. And the Imam explains and he says, وَإِن قُبِلَتْ قُبِلَتْ مَا سِوَى وَإِن رُدَّتْ رُدَّتْ مَا سِوَى. That if your prayers are accepted, all of your other a'mal on the Day of Judgment will be accepted. But if your prayers are refused, everything else will be refused. Pointing to the importance of making sure that our salat is something that we pay attention to. To the extent where our sixth Imam would say on his deathbed, لا ينال شفاعتنا مستخفا للصلاة. The Imam says on his deathbed, he gathers all of his family and he makes one statement. He warns his children, he warns his family. He says, our shifa'ah will not reach the one mustakhifan lis-salat, one who takes his prayers lightly. The Imam's not saying the one who doesn't pray. The Imam is saying the one who takes prayers lightly, our shifa'ah will not reach them. Which points to the fact that, okay, if the Day of Judgment is all about the a'mal, what about my Imam? What about Islam? When am I going to be asked about these things? Allah has organized the afterlife very specifically. On the Day of Judgment, you're actually called with the Imam that you belong to already. يَوْمَ نَدْعُ كُلُّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. Allah is not going to ask you on the Day of Judgment who is your Imam. He's just going to call you with your Imam. So when do you announce who your Imam is? When do you have this entire conversation about what faith you follow, who your Imam is, what your book is, and what do you do? This happens at the moment of death. And when you die and you get entered into the grave, this is where the filing system of the Day of Judgment begins. That at that moment, as soon as you're buried, is when the angels come and decide who you're going to line up with and what you're going to do and where you're going to be, and then your a'mal will be according to that action. Which is why we say that when Munkar and Nakir come to the grave, they ask you, who is your Lord? What is your book? Who is your prophet? What is your qibla? Who is your Imam? The significance of them asking that question at that point in time is that's the only time you have to answer this. After this moment, you're not asked again. Whatever you set and sealed in that moment is what you have until you go on the Day of Judgment, and until you go before Allah, you line up with exactly who you said, and that's who you stay with. Meaning the affairs of the afterlife are important to pay attention to and prepare for, because you get one chance. And this is why when someone in our community passes away, one of the final things that we do for them is talqeen. And we remind them, يُلَقِّنَ الرُّوحَ. We remind the soul that in a moment you're about to be asked these important questions. And you need to know the answer to these important questions because it's going to impact the rest of your afterlife. Now the beauty and the mercy of Allah is this, that we have narrations that tell us that if the soul is given talqeen, then Munkar and Nakir say, he just got told all the answers, what's the point of asking him? And the affair is settled without any difficulty. This points to two elements that are important for us to pay attention to in our life. One is that these fundamentals of faith, these usul ad-din that we call tawheed, adal, nabuwat, imamat, and ma'ad, that I practice and establish them in my character now. You can't, right? When you're in a difficult situation, if you don't truly believe something, you can't really practice it in that moment of hardship. But if it's something that you've lived as a value and implemented in your life every single day and you've paid attention to and you know it, when you wind up in a hard situation, you go back to the most fundamental thing you know in your life, and that's what you can answer. Which is why the concept of the philosophy of faith is, do I live a philosophy of faith? If I live a philosophy of faith, then that philosophy will come in to aid me in that moment when I need it the most. So which is why one of the most important things you can study in your life and spend time in your life is these concepts of tawheed, adal, nabuwat, imamat, and ma'ad. Oneness of God, justice of God, belief in prophethood, imamat, and that there is a day of judgment and resurrection. That when I invest in these philosophies and these concepts and I spend my time learning, and don't imagine these are simple statements, there is a world of understanding. People have been trying for 1,000 years to understand tawheed and we haven't completely understood it. It's not a simple statement, it has much depth behind it. So this is one. The other item is the character that, for example, we establish when we go to the burial. And which is what we were pointing at before, that when we go to the burial, at the place of burial, when we're taking the time to remind someone of how important these questions and answers are, is when solemnity, being quiet, paying attention, not crying, not being distracting, is when it's an important point. It's not that we don't cry for our marhumin at any point in time, no, but at that place and in that location, this is the most important thing that you will do with your entire existence, is prepare for where you're going to stand up on the Day of Judgment. So the significance is take care to pay attention to that moment in concern for the person who's passed and in preparation that one day I have to go through this too. And focus on that point of preparing yourself so that we rise in the correct location on the Day of Judgment, because you only get one shot at it. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It's in preparation of that time that we talk about the concept of ziyarat, because through this ziyarat we mentioned over and over again that the fundamentals of faith are taught and established in the character of every person. Ziyarat in general has 5 things that every ziyarat will give you. Whenever you recite a ziyarat, there are 5 things that you will always get. The first of these is that you will bear witness to the imams and their status, and that they are dying in shahadat and they are the servants of Allah. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر. When we make these statements, we're describing and explaining what our relationship to this imam is, and that this imam is someone who's submitted to the will of Allah, and we learn what it means to submit to the will of Allah. The second of the elements that every ziyarat will give us is bearing witness to being free from the enemies of Ahlul Bayt and the friends of the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. That all of these people who are the enemies, we want to ensure that in my life I develop a character and a statement that separates me from those who are the enemies, and separates me from those who have any affiliation, separates me from all of the bad examples. And which is why part of the du'as of ziyarat is that, oh Allah, ana bare'tu, I am free from all of those who are the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. It's a du'a that we're making to make sure that we establish this in every concept of ziyarat. The third of these elements that you get from every ziyarat is in understanding and bearing witness to the truth and the reality of what happened in history. Remember something, when we talk about the history of Islam, or the history of any country for that matter, history is written by the victor, right? The one who wins, or the one who has authority, represents his narrative and story. Which is why there are some of our imams that it's said that we don't know how they died in history. Oh, they must have died of natural causes. They were not killed by anyone. Why? Because the one who killed them doesn't want to admit the fact that he was responsible for the death. Hence, whenever we read a ziyarat, one of the things that we establish in ourselves and we take benefit from is that we uncover the reality of history of what it is that actually happened. There are many ways in which these people in history would try to hide the reality of the events of what happened in the past. Take, for example, Ammar ibn Yasir. Ammar ibn Yasir, one of the closest companions of our Prophet, before our Prophet dies, he says, "Oh Ammar, you will be killed by fi'atil baghiya. You will be killed by that who is the rejecter, the oppressor, the enemy of Islam. Ammar ibn Yasir participates in the battle of Siffin between Muawiyah Mal'un and Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he's killed. He's killed fighting for Imam Ali against Muawiyah. Some of the soldiers of Muawiyah, they turned around and they said, uh-oh, we're on the wrong side. We remember what the Prophet said. Muawiyah tried to twist it. He turns and he says, I didn't kill Ammar. Ali brought Ammar to the battle. Had he not brought him, Ammar would not have been killed. It's Ali who killed Ammar. His own general, Amr ibn As, laughs and he says, then Rasulullah is the one who killed Hamza, huh? But the event was what? The interest was what? Twist history. One of the benefits that we have is whatever you can read in a history book, come back to and reaffirm it against what the Ziyarat teaches us of what the reality is. No one can hide that reality for us if we turn back to the doors of Ziyarat. To the extent where when we look at something like Ziyarat in-Nahiya, which is a very powerful Ziyarat that is written by the 12th Imam Sahib al-Asr wa zaman. Ziyarat in-Nahiya reveals the identities of both those who were killed supporting Imam Hussain and some of the killers who were responsible for the killing of the family of Ahlul Bayt. The name Marra that we take of the killer of Ali al-Akbar, Imam reaffirms this in Ziyarat in-Nahiya, that the reality of history is revealed to us through the Ziyarah. The fourth that we learn from every Ziyarat that enforces upon us and teaches us is the good characters of faith and denying and refusing the evil characteristics of the people who are the enemies of Allah. Every Ziyarat will have an element of akhlaq that it intends to implement into you and an element of akhlaq that it wants to forbid from you. That teaching you what are the upright characteristics that we need to embody and what are the things that we should stay away from. And finally, every Ziyarat, and you'll notice this closer to the end of every Ziyarat, implements and teaches life values and priorities that you should implement in your life. Now, understanding these 5 concepts that are always discussed in every Ziyarat, we can say that, Sheikh, I read every Ziyarat in Arabic, I never got a single one of these things. And the immediate reaction of somebody may be that, well, then why are you reading it in Arabic? Let's stop here for a second. The Arabic language has been selected for teaching of the fundamentals of Islam because it encompasses in the Arabic language a complete meaning that Allah intends. For example, kalimatil wilaya. There's no one word that translates what wilaya means in Arabic into English. Does that mean that, for example, we shouldn't read in English? No, but balance between the two. Realize that the entirety of a concept is presented in the Arabic language. Recite that Ziyarat in Arabic to ensure that, oh Allah, whatever this word in its entirety that has been selected for this situation has been presented, I mean all of it. But to have ma'rifah and understanding, then it's my job to go back and spend the time with the English and with the language. What we do is we say, I can only do one or the other. Why? Why can you do one or the other? Why can't we take the onus and responsibility on ourselves to invest in the time? Further to that, listen, the history of where we came from and the history of the time and generations before learning Arabic may have been impossible for some. It's not for us. It's not. There's Duolingo, there's all these things you put on your phone, there are classes you can attend, there's universities you can go to, there's programs you can attend. Us, as the followers of Ahlul Bayt, if we realize that the Arabic language has been selected to attach us, that the Arabic language is the language of the Quran, is the language of Hadith, why aren't we investing in it? We're really smart now. We have access to great tools. We have access to great resources. It doesn't exist like in previous generations where there was no one to teach us, there was no way to get this knowledge without traveling and sacrificing everything. That doesn't exist anymore. Each of us should take the responsibility to invest in my faith, and to get closer to my faith. If this is a language that is beneficial, we should make sure that we invest our time to learn it, to get closer to it. The other schools of thought are doing this and we're not. We're taking it for granted. We should all be working on this process of getting closer to that language so that the entirety of that meaning of that ziyarat benefits us. The entirety of that meaning of the Quran benefits us. We start to realize the beauty and the intricacy of the Quran. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. I was going to go off on a tangent, but we'll stop here for a second. Let's get back to our topic, otherwise we're not going to complete our topic tonight. Our topic of discussion tonight is a ziyarah that's known as Ziyarat-e-Allah. Ziyarat-e-Allah is a shorter ziyarat than the other two ziyarat that we've discussed so far, but it is one of the most authentic and most powerful ziyarats that we possess, and it's one that is probably the best known in terms of its sanad and resources and association in being provided to us. To the extent where the ulama would say that this is that ziyarat that everybody should know, and you can recite it in every place that you go to for every single imam. Short ziyarat, but full of depth and meaning. It has a great description in understanding the relationship with Allah, what we want to ask from Allah, our relationship with the authority of the imam and understanding who is the imam, and asking Allah for his assistance and guidance. This short ziyarat begins with Assalamu alayka ya Amin Allah fi ardih wa hujjatuhu ala ibadih, and then it says Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. This ziyarah, if it was to be recited at every single markad, every single location, every single haram that you go to, you would begin again the same, Assalamu alayka ya Amin Allah fi ardih wa hujjatuhu ala ibadih, and then you would say Assalamu alayka, and then the name of the imam that you are going to visit. And this ziyarah would fit in every location and is appropriate to recite for every one of the imams. And it's an affiliation understanding of the status of the imam. One of the most beautiful things is that when we begin this, it's called Ziyarat-e-Amin Allah. Amin is that one who is trustworthy. Amin Allah is the one who is given the trust from Allah, the trustworthy one of Allah. The beauty is, if you take a look at just the first few sentences, the first point we take a look at the ziyarah is the first two sentences of the ziyarah. That on the one hand we say, this is Amin Allah, the one who is the trustworthy one from Allah. And then we say, Assalamu alayka ya hujjati fi ardih. That being the trustworthy one of Allah means that He is the authority over everything that exists on this earth. That Allah, by making Him Amin, remember, who is the one who was called Amin in this world? Was our Prophet, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muhammad. He was called As-Sadiq al-Amin, the truthful, the trustworthy. That being Amin meant that the people of Makkah knew that even if they disagreed with our Prophet on the fundamental of faith, that he was still trustworthy, more trustworthy than anyone else. To the extent where they even took advantage of this. That when our Prophet leaves the city of Makkah, he leaves the trusts of the people with Imam Ali to return to them, and some of them lied and said, the Prophet held more than this for me, or the Prophet held something for me. But the status of being trustworthy was the one that Imam Ali still ensured that even if they were lying, they were fulfilled, that they could not place any blame on the Prophet. The Amin, the trustworthy one, Allah, when He places His trust in someone, the trust of Allah is such that Allah, everything He has created, then subjugates under the hand of the one who is trustworthy. When we say an Imam has authority over everything that exists, it's because of this fundamental that Allah has made him trustworthy. Then why would He not place everything under His authority and control? That when we see an Imam, his authority extending over all of humanity and all that exists in this kawn, is because Allah has defined him as being Al-Amin and trustworthy. Which is why when we see the status of Ahlul Bayt and we want to understand it, understanding how far Allah has given them authority, because He considers them trustworthy, that they would never be abusive of the possession that they have. The second point is that when we understand that this Imam has been made the authority of Allah on this earth and he has control over the entirety of this earth, look at how Allah describes and He says about the shahadat of these Imams. فَقَبَضَكَ إِلَيْهِ بِاخْتِيَارِهِ وَأَلْزَمَ أَعْدَاءَكَ الْحُجَّةَ مَعَ مَا لَكَ مِنَ الْحُجَّةِ بَالِغَةِ عَلَى جَمِيعِ خَلْقِهِ. The honesty of the Imam is such that though he possesses everything, he does not abuse anything. If today we were to imagine and say, on the one hand we say that Imam has authority over everything, then why was the Imam killed? Why was the Imam abused? Why was he oppressed? We would see that here Allah is describing and saying that Allah says, when I took back the soul of this Amin, and I allowed وَأَلْزَمَ أَعْدَاءَكَ الْحُجَّةَ, that I allowed these enemies of yours to have authority over you to take your life, and they took the blame for killing you. Although you have the inclusive claims against all of his creatures and your authority is absolute over them, it's to describe and say that the Imam, though possessing an authority, does not abuse it. The same way, and this is an interesting point, that we can take a look at the authority of Allah. There's a discussion amongst the various philosophies of Islam that look to see and say, is Allah all-powerful? If He is all-powerful, then He can do whatever He wants. He can take Hitler and put him in heaven. He can take Mother Teresa and throw her in hell. Because Allah is powerful. Who's to stop Him? And this school of thought is referred to as Maturidiyya. Allah does whatever He wants. Maturid, fayaf'al. Does whatever He desires. And I say the most greatest attribute of Allah is His being all-powerful. We don't believe this. We believe that the reason we mention the sifa of adalat in usul ad-din, the justice of Allah in usul ad-din, is on the principle that Allah, because of His knowledge being supreme, believes that justice is the fair attribute to implement in every situation. That, for example, if He was to exert His power and take someone unworthy and put them into a place where they don't deserve to be, that would be against the knowledge of Allah and then therefore against the principle of justice of Allah. So that Allah's power is regulated only by His knowledge, which insists upon the element of justice. Understanding this, now look at the hujjah of Allah on this earth. Why then does the hujjah be in a position that someone can abuse him when he has control over everything? Because his power is not his most supreme attribute. His justice is his most supreme attribute. And his justice is not to punish or abuse someone until they have committed the sin. This is why you see Amir al-Mu'mineen in Ramadan. He knows that there is an enemy there who has ill intention towards him. But how can he punish him until he's committed a crime? Because Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa. This same principle when applied to the life of Abu Abdullah, Imam Hussain in the field of Karbala. His goal was not the murder of all of these people in front of him, though he may possess the power. His goal was that justice is to bring everyone to hidayah and guidance. So he bore patiently, inviting to guidance in every moment that he possessed in the field of Karbala. This is what it means that Allah, when He's describing this and giving us the explanation, that though you possessed that you possessed authority over everything, yet you were killed in oppression, is because that power that you possessed over everything wasn't the absolute attribute of knowing your quality, but rather your patience, your justice, your interest in guidance, fulfilling the purpose of creation, inviting humanity to heaven that Allah created us for, was what you intended to do in every moment of difficulty, not to extract and show that I have authority over everything. Why? There's another conversation. You guys, everybody's okay? We'll take it aside. Are you ready? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When does an Imam commit a miracle? When he wants something? No. The purpose of a miracle is only in the process of hidayah. Meaning that when we see an Imam performing a miracle, it is either one, to prove the validity of the religion of Islam, or two, to defend the religion of Islam against false claims. The Imam himself, though he may have possess the authority over everything, doesn't use this authority in every instance except in furthering the purpose and the message of life, which is hidayah, guidance. So don't imagine that everything that the Imam will do or does is a miracle. Alhamdulillah, the Imam is all powerful, but the Imam limits the use of this authority to fulfill the purpose of his responsibility. The next of our discussion, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In this ziyarah, one of the attributes that we do is we turn back to Allah in appreciation of what He has given us. شاكرة لفواضل نعمائك ذاكرة للسوابغ علائك. That we are thankful to you for your graceful bounties and always bearing in mind your incessant gifts. Ziyarat Amin Allah, as we say salam to the Imam and the Ma'soom in front of us, the relationship with the Ma'soom is to turn us back to Allah. Hence the concept of hidayah that the Imam presents. One of the aspects of hidayah that is important for each of us to establish is the cognizance and awareness of the role of Allah in our life as the one who provides for everything. And that's being thankful to Allah in all states. لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. That if you are thankful to me, then I will increase in you. وَإِن كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. That ungratefulness to Allah will bring about the punishment of Allah. Allah goes further in various places in the Quran, and He even points out, وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. That few amongst my servants are truly thankful to me. This is why we know that when we go to the Imam, one of the points that the Imam will turn us back to is the gratefulness to Allah that we need to possess in our lives. The awareness that sometimes we see one difficulty in our life and we concentrate on that one difficulty and that one problem that we're facing, and we become ignorant of all the other bounties and benefits Allah has given us. We sit and we complain, oh Allah, you didn't let me buy the brand new BMW. I've seen it. I've had a child cry in front of me. I can't buy it, my friends are buying it and I can't. Did you neglect your parents are alive? You have sense and completion of body and health. You have the love of wilayah in your heart. These bounties are the ones that we become neglectful of, and what do? We turn around, we look at one issue, one problem, and we become overcome by it. One of the practical ways of overcoming these issues when they happen to us in life is having a good friend circle. Let me explain. The statement is not as simple as you may think. Culturally, a friend circle is your peers. Culturally. Why? Because you go to school with them, they go through the same experiences with you, you go through these processes all together. But that's not really what your friend circle needs to be. Your friend circle needs to be more expanded than that. It needs to involve people who are older than you and people who are younger than you, so that we have perspective in life. That when I'm struggling through a difficulty, I can go to someone older who looks at me and says, you think that's bad? Wait until you get here. That's an easy problem. I can solve that for you now. Or at other times we look at someone younger than us and we see, mashallah, how far I've come. That his problems are easy for me, I can help him. We gain perspective in life of the ability of where we stand in society, and our friends have the ability to influence and guide us either through their needs and giving us the opportunity to be supportive and assistant in that process, or two, receiving guidance and support for those who have passed these difficulties in life. If I'm struggling with a 2-year-old, what's another guy with a 2-year-old going to do to help me? He's going to say the same thing. I don't know what to do with them when they cry either. But someone who has, for example, a 15-year-old will say, it gets worse, don't worry. That's an easy one, I can help you with that. Teaches us perspective and patience. Or we may look at somebody younger who hasn't started their family and be like, yes, I may be in a difficult position, but I appreciate the bounties that Allah has given me. And I remember when I didn't have children. Do I consider myself better now? Yes. Is this a problem? Yes. Alhamdulillah for this difficulty. Because through this difficulty, Allah made me sahib al-awlad. He gave me a lineage. He gave me posterity. He helped me pass so many difficulties. This is why difficulties in life do exist. Being thankful to Allah doesn't mean that we don't have problems in life. No, but the acknowledgement of being thankful to Allah and why it's taught to us and why Allah wants us to be thankful is that the bounties that surround us far exceed the difficulties that bother us. Why get lost in one statement? Which is why the Imam is teaching us when we go to the Imam that, oh Allah, you put me in front of my Imam. You attach me to the greatest example in humanity. I am thankful for this, though in spite of this I may have a problem. The next of the points in our ziyarat that we mentioned, and again, these are brief excerpts of the statements of ziyarat to teach us some of the fundamentals that Allah wants us to establish in our life. If you spend the time with the ziyarah, you may unlock many secrets. There are many who have spent time pondering over how the A'immah compose these statements. This ziyarah in particular, being known as one of the authentic ziyarat, is narrated to us first by this Jabir ibn Abdullah Ansari, who receives it from the fourth Imam, that he says, I was in the company of Ali ibn al-Hussain performing the ziyarat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. But more famously, you'll find in its narrations that it's the fifth Imam who teaches us the ziyarat of Amin Allah. That in society, the ziyarah of Amin Allah becomes popular and more narrated in the dawr of the fifth Imam, not the fourth. The reason for this is knowing of the grave of Imam Ali. One of the important points that you have to notice is that we didn't always know where the grave of Amir al-Mu'mineen was. Imam Ali, there are two who were buried in the night. One was Sayyidah Zahra and the other was Imam Ali. Sayyidah Zahra was buried in the middle of the night because of her anger at those who had stolen the right of Ali ibn Abi Talib, to ensure and to make a point so that everybody knew that these enemies would never be attached to and receive the benefit of the ziyarah of Fatima to Zahra. Imam Ali, on the other hand, was buried at night لِشِدَّةِ عَدُولِهِ, that the severity of the justice of Imam Ali was such that humanity at the time, there were not 40 people who truly loved Ali ibn Abi Talib at the time of his shahada. And those who were the enemies, they were not above the concept of desecrating the grave of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Hence, the grave of Amir al-Mu'mineen was made in the night when no one knew where his grave was, until we see the end of the door of the Banu Umayyah. The Banu Umayyah, those who stole the Khilafah, they were the ones who were very adamant in the cursing of Amir al-Mu'mineen and showing animosity towards Amir al-Mu'mineen. So the Ahlul Bayt kept the grave secret, lest that those who were the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt should interact something and try to desecrate the grave of Imam Ali. The publication, the public announcement, the public event of this grave was disclosed in the door of the fifth and sixth Imam. That when the Banu Umayyah were losing power and no longer in power, people began to be introduced to this grave, and thus the fifth Imam is the one who is noted as having introduced this grave to society. So you and I didn't know about this grave. The earlier generations of lovers of Ahlul Bayt didn't have the freedom to go to the grave of Amir al-Mu'mineen, to sit by him, to speak to him. Amir al-Mu'mineen itself, the commander of the faithful, is a title that is only appropriate for Ali ibn Abi Talib. No one else had the right to be called this, to the extent where when someone came to the sixth Imam and said, Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, they said, we saw Ja'far as-Sadiq stand up and say, never say that to anyone except Ali ibn Abi Talib. That is our father's status and no one else's. There is only one Amir, and it is Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Ya Ali. Even amongst the Imams, to understand the status of the Ahlul Bayt and the Imams, there's a difference in the status of the Ahlul Bayt, of which they describe and say all of the Imams are one, except for the exception of Imam Hassan, Imam Hussain, and Sahib al-Zaman, who are of the next level. And the one who is above them is Amir al-Mu'mineen. And all of the a'mal of the Imams are dedicated to Amir al-Mu'mineen, and thus his status is higher. But Imam Ali himself, when he describes himself, he says, Ana abdum min abidi Rasulillah. I am but a slave from amongst the slaves and servants of Rasulullah. There is no Imam, and no Imam who would accept that anything they possess exceeds the glory and the might of Rasulullah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. You have to understand something. When we see the different fadail of these A'immah, they're not something that puts them in competition with Rasulullah. It is, for example, to think of Rasulullah as the tree, and these A'immah are the branches of the tree. The branch has no glory without the beauty of the tree being established. This is why it's one of the important elements to understand this, that all of the A'immah are under the authority of Rasulullah, and their authority is a glorification of the status of Rasulullah, not separate from it. We look at the fourth point in this, Ziyara, where we see وَزَلَلَ مَنِ اسْتَقَالَكَ مَقَالَ وَأَعْمَالِ الْعَامِلِينَ لَدَيْكَ مَحْفُوظًا. In our request to Allah through this ziyarah by the wasila of Amir al-Mu'mineen, we see that we are asking Allah that, oh Allah, you are the one, وَزَلَلَ مَنِ اسْتَقَالَكَ مَقَالَ, who can forgive and excuse the slips of him who comes to you and asks you for forgiveness. We're saying, oh Allah, I know and I have faith and yaqeen in you, that if I came to you with my mistake, you could forgive me for it. And we continue to say, وَأَعْمَالِ الْعَامِلِينَ لَدَيْكَ مَحْفُوظًا. And the deeds of those who perform good deeds we know are preserved with you, that they are never forgotten. These two elements, if we could understand them, we would find peace in every difficulty we have in life. From the one aspect, that the one who makes a mistake, Allah will forgive. Never consider any sin that you perform as small. Our fifth Imam would teach, لا الصغير مع الاستمرار ولا كبير مع الاستغفار. That when it comes to sinning, there is no small sin if you continue to repeat the sin. And there is no great sin with the ability to seek forgiveness from Allah. Meaning if we turn back to Allah, He can forgive all of these attributes. But the problem is that do we remember to seek Allah's forgiveness? One of the most dangerous things is that Allah can remove the remembrance of a sin, or the even believing in the fact that a sin is a bad thing. If Allah chooses to leave us away from His mercy, you may not be obstinate. You may not realize and say, oh, I hate Allah, or I won't follow Allah, na'uzubillah. No, you'll say, yeah, I believe in Allah. But what do I have to seek forgiveness for? What did I ever do wrong? Allah removes the desire of seeking His forgiveness from the heart that He wants to punish. You'll never imagine and think that the actions that you performed are a sin. And the one who Allah wants to have mercy upon, Allah reminds him of his sin to ask for forgiveness in this life before being held accountable on the Day of Judgment. If it ever happens, as you get older, unfortunately these beards are turning white, you remember something I did in my childhood, and it embarrasses you. Or you remember something you did as a young man or a young woman, and you're like, how did I commit that action? That reminder that comes to you randomly is Allah inviting you to seek forgiveness for that action. That leave it here. This is why Allah says that the one who comes to me for forgiveness, I will forgive everything. But you have to have the tawfiq for forgiveness. If you realize I've made a mistake, you realize I've done something wrong, don't hesitate or delay. No, I'll seek forgiveness later. Immediately. Because what's to know that you won't even remember that you committed this sin? The other side of this coin is where Allah says that He keeps safe the affair and action of every person who performs it. Never look for humanity to appreciate your good. Humanity can never appreciate the good that you do. You see a poor man, give him $1. He'll say, that's it. That's all you're going to give me. He will not realize that in my pocket I only had 2. I only had 1 and I gave it to him. He'll only look at the immediate value in front of him, and he'll decide what the value of this action is. Allah is that merciful one who knows the true intention by which you do a deed and rewards you to the fullest extent for it. It's next to impossible for anyone to do this. Do we have time? You guys want to hear a story? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. In the times of Ahlul Bayt, there was 3 travelers who became lost in the desert on their way to Mecca. They happened upon a tent of a Bedouin. And they stood outside of the tent and they called, is there anyone there? Is there anyone to help us? An old woman came out and she said, come, I will help you. They said, we are travelers on our way to Mecca for Hajj. But we got lost and separated from everything we possessed, and we have nothing, and we're in the middle of the desert with nothing. She says, what can I do to help you? They said, do you have something for us to drink? Do you have something for us to eat? The old woman says, we possess this one goat, we milk it, and then what I can do is I'll milk it for you, and then we'll slaughter it so that you can eat the meat from it. She slaughters this animal, serves it to them, gives them the milk, and as they have been refreshed, they say, thank you, O lady, we are from Medina. If you ever come to Medina, allow us to repay your kindness. And they went about their way. The old woman's husband comes home. He's a Bedouin. He comes home after a while. Where's the goat? She says, hospitality demanded that these three men were in bad condition and all we had was the goat. So I gave them the milk and I slaughtered it. He says, that was all the possession that we had in this world. You've destroyed us. What are we going to do now? And in this way, he became upset with her and some time passed. And their condition, instead of getting better after this incident, continued to get worse. Because they had given up, Ra's al-Mal, their source of income they had given up, their source of sustenance they had given up. Eventually, it happened after some time, they went to Medina. But the woman had forgotten about these three travelers. It so happens that one of these three travelers was sitting in front of his house and he saw the woman. He sent his servants, he says, bring her to me. She comes and he says, oh, Amat Allah, oh lady servant of Allah, do you remember me? She says, no. He says, I'm the one who came to you in the desert who was stuck and had nothing. I want to compensate you for the goodness that you did to me. She says, Alhamdulillah. He says, here's 2,000 dinar, and I give you 1,000 sheep from my possession for the goodness you did me. He says, but that's not enough. My companion will also want to thank you. He takes a servant, sends him to the next house. He goes to the next house. Again, the man comes out and he recognizes the lady. He says, I want to thank you. What were you given? She says, 2,000 dinars, 1,000 sheep. He says, I will give the same. Our third companion will want to compensate you as well. She goes to the third house. The man becomes very excited seeing her. He says, I want to compensate you. What were you given from the other two? She replies and says, 2,000 dinar and 1,000 sheep. He says, I wish you came to me first. I would have compensated you more generously. But because Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain gave you this much, I, Abdullah ibn Ja'far, cannot give you more than them. The significance of this point is twofold. One, do good not with the intention of compensation, and Allah will compensate you more than you could imagine. Do good because Allah wants it, not because people deserve it. More often than not, we do a good deed and we wait to see, what are you going to do for me? What are you going to give me in exchange? And we become despondent that people don't appreciate us. Do it for Allah. He'll compensate you in dunya and akhirah. And that too, if you are given the opportunity to give anything in way of Ahlul Bayt, you can't imagine how generous Ahlul Bayt will be in return to you. One sheep, one goat. And look at how the Imam compensated. Not 100 times more, not 1,000 times more, but even more than that. Serve in the way of the Ahlul Bayt and they will raise you in ways you can't imagine. The final of our points, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One of the most important du'as in the Ziyarat of Ameen Allah. Allahumma fastajib du'ai waqbal thanai wajma' bayni wa bayna awliyai bihaqqi Muhammadin wa aliyin wa Fatimata wal Hasan wal Hussein. This du'a at the end of this ziyarah is saying that, oh Allah, I'm asking you that respond to my du'a and accept my thanksgiving of you and my praising of you and collect me with my masters and those who I follow. And I beseech you in the name of Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein. This dua in its simplicity is a complete dua. Complete. that I want Allah to reward me and fulfill my desires. I want Him to accept my approaching proximity to Him. And that I need the wasila of Ahlul Bayt to get closer to Allah. One of the greatest lessons of Ziyarat Allah is to come to the realization and the conclusion that to reach Allah, I need a wasila. And that best wasila is the one who is Amin Allah, the trustworthy of Allah. The one who is so trustworthy of Allah that He gave him authority over everything He created. So such that if I want to go back to Allah, come to Him through these Ahlul Bayt, and Allah will fulfill and raise my status and fulfill my desires. These ziyarat are lessons for each of us to spend time in and to invest in, and that when we have a dua or a hajat that we want to achieve, one of the great doors that we possess to fulfill these hajat, overcome these difficulties, is turn back through the words of these ziyarat. The Ahlul Bayt taught us these ziyarat as a way to connect with them, and through their wasila fulfill our desires with Allah. One who understands this connection, Allah can raise their status to something you can't imagine. Look at the example of al-Baneen, who is known as Babul Hawa'ij. al-Baneen is known as the gateway of fulfilling your desires because of her connection and her love and her ma'rifah of Ahlul Bayt. After the event of Arbaeen, Sayyidah Zainab has connected with Aba Abdullah. She has connected with Abul Fadl. But there is one more that she still has to connect with, that she connects with when she returns to the city of Medina. There is one who is waiting there for her, who has presented a sacrifice in the same way that Sayyidah Zainab has presented her sacrifice. They describe and say that when the women came back from Karbala, Imam Zainul Abidin had a tent put outside of the city of Medina, and that the people of Medina were to come to pay their respects to the Ahlul Bayt who had returned. Sayyidah Zainab made a statement and said that don't let any of the women of Medina in to see us. Why would she make such a statement? It could be that when she left Medina, she left as royalty. She left as the one who was Aqilat Bani Hashim, the intellectual of Bani Hashim. And when she came back, all of her brothers and her sons had been spent. They describe and say that when Sayyidah Zainab was in this tent, one of these servants who was told to keep the women out was told to Sayyidah Zainab and said, there is a lady who has come to see you. She's asking for entrance and she insists that I ask your permission. She says, who is she that is asking permission? She says, it is al-Baneen who is asking permission. Sayyidah Zainab says, don't you know she is one of us? She's not separate from us. The statement of al-Baneen in this respect breaks the heart. There are three who could not recognize Sayyidah Zainab. One of them is this al-Baneen. They write and say, the poets narrate and say that al-Baneen enters the tent and says, I am looking for my princess, I am looking for Sayyidah Zainab. In this she says, an old woman came to me and says, أَعْظَمَ اللَّهُ لَكِ الْعَزَى فِي ابْنِكَ الْعَبَّاسِ. She says, oh lady, I don't want to take anything from you. I want to see Zainab and talk to her. The woman replies, oh mother al-Baneen, I am Zainab in front of you. They describe the condition of Sayyidah Zainab had changed so much over the event of Karbala that al-Baneen, who had raised Sayyidah Zainab, could not recognize her. So she says, oh Zainab, you give me condolences over Abbas. أَعْظَمَ اللَّهُ لَكِ الْأَجْرَ بِالْعَزَابِ الْحُسَيْنِ. Looking at you, I have nothing to say except may Allah increase in your reward for your azah over Abu Abdullah. The two held each other and wept. They repeated the masayib of Abul Fadl and his shahadat to al-Baneen, such that they write and say that al-Baneen would weep over Imam Hussain in Baqi in such a way that she would make 4 small graves for her sons and 1 grave for Abu Abdullah and cry for Imam Hussain. Her attachment to Abu Abdullah was such that Marwan Mal'un, the one who caused Imam Hussain to leave Medina, would cry from seeing al-Baneen weep over Imam Hussain. But they describe that al-Baneen, when she would think of her son Abul Fadl, she would say that, "Oh Abul Fadl, they told me that you were martyred when they struck you on the head with a mace. But Abul Fadl, you were so tall. How could they have reached your head to strike you upon your head with a mace?" Oh al-Baneen, if they would have told you the Messiah of Abul Fadl, that after they cut his arms, they shot at him arrows to stop him, until eventually, oh al-Baneen, they shot your Abul Fadl in the eye. When he could see no longer, he wanted to return to Imam Hussein. But how does one with no arms remove an arrow from his eyes? al-Baneen, Abul Fadl lowered his head to use his knees to pull the arrow from his eye. Then they struck him on the head with a mace. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره ندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم 10 times يا الله 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 يا محمود بحق محمد يا أعلى بحق علي يا فاطر السماوات بحق فاطمة يا محسن بحق الحسن يا قديم الأحسان بحق الحسين. Oh Allah, accept this small ibadat from us. Ya Allah, give the thawab of this majlis, the marhumin of tonight's sponsor, our marhumin, and all those who are in need of dua. Ya Allah, forgive our sins and cover our flaws. Oh Allah, we have gathered here with hajat, by the right of the mention of Babul Hawaij, by the right of the mention of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the Ahlul Bayt, fulfill our hajat. Ya Allah, those amongst our families, our communities, the mu'mineen who are suffering through sickness and disease, give shafa'ah to the mu'mineen wherever they are. Ya Allah, keep our children on the upright path of Islam. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Sahib al-Zaman. Make us and our families from the upright supporters of Sahib al-Zaman. Entitle us to the Ziyarat of Imam Hussain in this world and the Shafa of Imam Hussain in the hereafter. One Surah Fatiha with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Matim ya Hussain.
Hussein, 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 Hussein.
I long for Bain al-Haramain. My heart is with Abbas and Hussein. Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma rizqna Karbala, Karbala. Allahumma rizqna Karbala, Karbala, Karbala. Allahumma rizqna Karbala, Karbala. Allahumma rizqna Karbala. My journey from here starts between the moon and the stars. Tears that I cry on my cheeks, crying for your dome it seeks. My master, come see these tears. Come and save me from my fears. Karbala, Karbala. Allahumma rizqna Karbala, Karbala. Allahumma rizqna Karbala. I hear Zainab crying out, O Zul. Hussain. Visitors, you ease my pain. March on towards Karbala. I'll also visit from Sham. Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma arzuqna Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma arzuqna Karbala. As I walk, this mother cries, in Karbala my son lies. O lovers, I am Zahra. I'll also come from afar. My tears will flow from Baqi to Furat, oh, can't you see? Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma arzuqna Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma arzuqna Karbala. From Baqi another wails, severed his arms on that day. I raised my son for Ashura. He was the prayer of Zahra. My name is Baneen. My love no limit has seen. Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma arzuqna Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma arzuqna Karbala. Tears of blood from above the rain, crying for Mawla Hussain. From upon the 12th one's cheek, to avenge us where he seeks. My Imam, for you we weep. Our yearning for you runs deep. Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma arzuqna Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma arzuqna Karbala. Love and tears are my fuel, marching with them towards you. But a drop in the million sea, O Hussein, acknowledge me. I've walked on Karbala's floor to throw myself at your door. Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma arzuqna Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma arzuqna Karbala, 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 Allahumma arzuqna Karbala, Karbala, Allahumma arzuqna Karbala. Hussain, Hussain.
Hussein, 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 Hussein. What has happened to my house? What has happened to my house? Zainab had said, "O people, what has happened to my house? Yesterday it was so full. Now there's only emptiness." Zainab had said, "O people, what has happened to my house?" Zainab had said, "O people, what has happened to my house?" Zainab had said, "O people, What has happened to my house? We were taken as prisoners to Kufa and the court of Sham. We were taken as prisoners to Kufa and the court of Sham. We didn't even have our veils. What has happened to my house? Zainab had said, oh people. What has happened to my house? Zainab had said, oh people. What has happened to my house? Oh Hussein, your daughter, who couldn't sleep without your chest. Oh Hussein, your daughter, who couldn't sleep without your chest. She had went to sleep in Sham. What has happened to my house? Zainab had said, oh people. What has happened to my house? Zainab had said, oh people. What has happened to my house? Oh my brother, I'll come to you. I'll perform your Arbaeen. Oh my brother, I'll come to you. I'll perform your Arbaeen. Sakina will not be there. What has happened to my house? Zainab had said, oh people. What has happened to my house? Zainab had said, oh people. What has happened to my house? Yesterday it was so full. Now there's only emptiness. Hussein, 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 Hussein. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah, assalamu alayka ya Nabi Allah, assalamu alayka ya Khadijat al-Kubra, assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'minin, السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا حسين الشهيد بكربلاء. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين ومحمد بن علي الباقر وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم وعلي بن موسى الرضا ومحمد بن علي التقي الجواد وعلي بن محمد النقي الهادي والحسن بن علي العسكري والحجة القائم المنتظر المهدي. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وظهورك وسهل الله مخرجك ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. All the young ones come and give salams to Maulana for his wonderful work over the last 5 days. Inshallah, our next majlis will